Welcome back to Leading Edge. Before we hit the air last weekend, but after our recording with Joanne Armour, it happened again. The Ohio Supreme Court threw out new state legislative maps drawn by the state redistricting commission because once again, the court said that they were clearly drawn to give one political party an advantage. The redistricting commission is heavily Republican, 5-2, so you can figure out which party they favored. But then this week, significant movements, plural, I think, and a new deadline for getting it all done. I think we're in Columbus right now with Susan Tebben. You know Susan from the Ohio Capital Journal, who's long been covering this story. The latest maps were rejected because of the commission's use, as I read this, Susan, of political leanings, and it wasn't really consistent. One only had to get a heartbeat over 50% to be considered a Democratic-leaning district, while Republican-leaning districts were much more comfortably safe havens for Republicans. And the High Court's majority, as I read it, left no doubt that it saw the commission's actions as done solely for political benefit. Is that your read?
That is correct. Yeah, they essentially it was the same arguments that the court has made in the previous two striking downs of these maps. Basically, they're saying, the Republicans had controlled this process. The Republicans have also made it so that the map looks as red as they want it to look. So we need to try it again for a fourth time.
Well, one thing I thought once they got closer in terms of, I think the state has told them pretty clearly, we're looking for something that equates to about 54-46 Republican advantage because of what the statewide vote has been over the decade. And if you took the commission's district count, you could get to, like on the Senate side, 18-15, but that's if all those Democratic districts that are Democrat by that much stay in their column. So, update. Instead of bucking up and doing their jobs, the legislative leaders on the redistricting commission this week turned to outside, high-priced help in the form of mediators. So, Susan Tebben, who are these folks? And does this mean the commission then will sign on to their district map solution, should they get one?
Well, it takes a little more explaining that out. Even there's actually 4 new people, including the 4.
Oh, good.
Yes, there's 4 original map makers, which are 2 from each caucus, the Republican and Democrat caucus. They both had map drawers that were in this process all along, proposing things. Usually the Republican map drawers had more success with getting things through. But now we have 2 independent map drawers, one Republican, one proposed by the Republicans, one proposed by the Democrats. Michael McDonald is the Democratic proposal. He works with the University of Florida. He's done redistricting stuff for other states. And then you have Douglas Johnson, who works for a company. He's worked on these redistricting in North Carolina and in other places. So he does a lot of work with this kind of thing. So they're in the fold as well, and they're being paid by the commission to do this work. And they're actually in the process of doing the drawing, clicking the mouse, moving the lines, that kind of thing. And then you have the 2 legal mediators that come from the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. Those 2 were offered up by the court as one of them has experience in alternative dispute resolution, which seems like something that might be helpful in this process, as we have not come to any bipartisan agreement in any of these maps. So you have the 2 legal mediators. They are not there to draw maps. They are not there to say this way or another. They are there in case there are disagreements, so that the court and the map makers don't have to keep coming back and saying, this is our problem, have another meeting, approve something, slow the process down.
When the 2 sides butt heads, the mediators are there to say, okay, here's where we are. Right. Here are some potentials. But they don't draw the commission still has to come up with the map.
They still approve it. Yeah.
All right. And as we watch this weekend, then that means this Monday, what, 28th?
28th.
28th. Yep. That's a deadline set by the Ohio Supreme Court.
Correct.
What happens if we don't get there by the 28th?
Yeah, good question. Everyone has been saying along this process, this is a brand new process. This is something that we've never done before. So we don't know. There was talk of being held in contempt the last time because they missed a deadline. That contempt hearing was pulled once they actually, a week after the deadline, they passed a map. And then the Supreme Court pulled it with no explanation. So, that could still be something. That could be something that they're holding on to see if this actually works, or we could go back to the drawing board yet again. Or we also have a federal lawsuit that is asking for a 3-judge panel to take over this process and take it away from the Supreme Court and do it that way. So we still got plenty of options here.
But plenty of options, but not a whole lot of time to explore all of them, because this whole process has greatly compressed the time before the May 3rd primary. Update on this week from Susan Tebben down there in Columbus. I know that the 2Ds, early in the week, I read the 2 Democrats on the commission actually asked the Supreme Court to delay the primary. And then this week, the Secretary of State, the guy that runs elections, has said, okay, May 3rd, the ballot, he seems to be saying we're going forward with May 3rd, but it cannot and will not contain state house and Senate districts because we don't frankly know what they are. Tell me about deadline stuff.
Right. They're really helping the 24/7 news cycle, aren't they? Because
yeah, they
thing after thing after thing after thing. Yeah. So the Secretary of State has basically said we had this foul up with the absentee military ballots. There's a federal law that says that they have to have 45 days before the election. They have to get the ballots out to people that are in the military and Ohioans that are living overseas. We got that stretched, so they only have to have it 30 days before the election. We got that figured out. Now the Secretary of State is saying, not only can we not get these legislative races in for the absentees, we can't get them in for anybody now. He was really counting on this federal lawsuit that I say it was filed by GOP voters to force them to use the previous struck down maps for at least the May primary, if not the 2022 election. So now the Secretary of State is saying, since that didn't happen literally last night, then Thursday night, then we can't use these legislative races in the May primary for anybody. So now they'll have to have, if they do end up passing these maps in time, they would have to have, or if the federal court decides that they can use the previous maps, they would have to send a supplemental ballot, which he says is a whole different pile of confusion.
Oh, man.
No.
All right, and still hanging out there, folks. I know you're at this point going, why can't they just get this done? But still hanging out there are congressional districts. Now, this is the U.S. House of Representatives. We'll have 15 moving forward from the state of Ohio. First map found to be an unconstitutional gerrymander. Now some interest, Susan Tebben, that I'm reading about, including the League of Women Voters, who guested on my show, 2 weeks ago, are withdrawing from the challenge. Can you give me the quick answer on where we are on that?
Yeah, so it's actually pretty interesting. The Supreme Court actually said, we don't have any more jurisdiction on this. We said that they were not right the last time. That was our final decision. So they would have to file a new lawsuit to be able to say these congressional maps are challenged. So that's what they did. The League of Women Voters did, and the National Redistricting Action Fund, representing some Ohio voters, also filed a challenge. So we're still waiting on those. But yes, the League of Women Voters is now focused on the 2024 election. Instead, they basically say this was a strategy by the GOP to run out the clock on these congressional maps. So we are focused on the 2024 election.
I can't help but believe that the whole thing is a strategy, because, folks, if you had a mind to live up to and fulfill the constitutional amendment passed by whom? The voters of Ohio, the people who pay your salaries down there under the dome at High and Broad, you could have gotten it done if you wanted to. And it's a little bit, I don't know, to hear somebody say, we're out of time now, but we're out of time because you stalled. Anyway, good luck, Carl. Thank you for your help, Susan Tebben. This is, I think it's fascinating. I think it's troubling. I think but it's important stuff, and I appreciate you staying on top. You can read her stuff all the time, as I do every day. OhioCapitalJournal.com. They do a great job down there in Columbus. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. I'll be here.
And when I come back, we're going to wrap up our conversation with Joanne Armour.